Despite knowing about Mega Man for DOS computers for a long time, I never actively looked into it. I just heard the horror stories and was like, okay, I'm gonna stay away from that, and proceeded to do just that. I didn't really grow up as a PC gamer. I had an old Tandy computer as a kid, but I played stuff like Frogger and other very simple old arcade games. Never thought to pick up anything modern like Mega Man. I didn't even pick up Mega Man for the NES, so why would I pick it up for the Tandy computer that I had? But there are some who are dedicated PC players, and Capcom decided to take advantage of that and introduce it to the PC crowd. Unfortunately, they didn't really put a lot of effort into this port, and really, it's not a port. It is a completely original design taking concepts that you see in Mega Man games, Mega Man 1 and 2, and adapting them for the DOS computer. And it is extremely bare bones. There's not really much of a story put forth. All I could find was what was on the back of the box, which is basically just like, hey, Wily's out there causing all these troubles. You need to get 3 keys from the 3 robot masters in order to access the core room and take on the mega computer that was revived by Wily. Go do that. And it's such an odd feeling game. It doesn't feel official in any way, shape, or form, but it is. This was published by Capcom. This was licensed by Capcom and mainly developed by one guy. There is obviously some extra help here and there, but it was mainly done by one man named Steven Rosner, who developed this under Rosner Labs and previously worked on porting Street Fighter to the Commodore 64. So he did have experience, but he also presumably didn't have a lot of time or budget to make this work. Also, the systems between DOS and the NES are fundamentally different, and you can feel that difference when you play this game. It is one of the oddest things I've ever tried, but also not as bad as it's really led on to be. Now hear me out. It's not good. It does not feel good to play. While it does offer controller support, it's for old controllers. Nothing modern will work with this thing unless you're going out of your way to do that. So the easiest way to play it is with keyboard controls. And the way you do that is you jump with J, you shoot with the spacebar, and you move with the directional buttons. No WASD, no keys easily match to the shape of your hand to make it comfortable and make sense. It is the most awkward positioning. In order to change your weapons, you have to hit escape and then push the letter of the weapon that you want to use, and that's how you get out of it. You don't just push escape again, you have to choose the letter. It is awkward to control, especially as someone who did not grow up with DOS games. It feels weird, and from the outset, it's weird and seems like it's just a weird fan game because there's an opening level before you choose which of the robot masters to take on. And it literally consists of a checkpoint, almost like you're going into a movie studio or a government base that feels so unwily that I'm just immediately caught off. But you go through that and then you are immediately attacked by probably the meanest enemy in the game, a tiger that just will not let you go. You have to run from this thing. You have to go. And it will do so much damage and just creates the weirdest first impression for this game you'd ever experience. But as soon as you get through that door, there you are at the boss selection screen. You get to see your 3 robot masters, Sonic Man, Volt Man, and Dynaman. Completely original and very odd designs. Like, you can see how they kind of fit into the aesthetics of Mega Man and even Mega Man himself being very odd, but I will never get the strange smiley face of Dynaman out of my head. He just looks so innocent, which is really funny whenever you see his full design. But yeah, this is the core part of the game. 3 levels to go through, so I chose Sonic Man, and it turned out to be a water-based level, and just from the outset, just enemies attacking you like crazy, so much damage being done. It throws you for a loop as you're going through all these sewer pipes and trying to figure out where to go, what to do. How do I hit these things that are so much lower to the ground? Why do these bats endlessly spawn? It is just an assault on the senses. And again, not growing up as a PC player, Very odd that there's absolutely no music in this game. It's just sound effects. It is so lifeless and barren in that way, but you kind of get used to it. It's not great, but you sort of get into the flow of what this game's putting down. And that goes for its levels as well, where for me, it was like, okay, I have these bats that endlessly spawn. I have to destroy these doors. Watch out for the lingering explosion effects. They still hurt. And I have to destroy them. So let's destroy the doors and then we'll farm the bats in order to get more health and then make my way through the rest and figure out ways to take on these other enemies and just get to the next section. It really was just like, just go. You got to just make your way through or else you're going to die. And it was not the best first impression, but I stuck with it because I was determined to beat this game. And eventually, as you get used to the controls, as you get used to what this game is doing to you, it kind of clicks. Like I was able to make further progress without dying more and more as I continued my attempts. And it wasn't so bad, but it also was not great. It's not good. It's not good in the slightest, but I got a sense of it, eventually making it to Sonic Man and taking him on, and he took a ton of damage from just the basic shots. So I'm like, okay, I can do this. I died the first time. Let's take him on again. And sure enough, I was able to beat Sonic Man in his very, very simple patterns and make it work. Got his ability, beat the first level, all set to go. And so I was left with the choice. Who was Sonic Man good against? Vaultman or Dynaman? Well, I decided to go Dynaman because, again, the strange smiley face. So let's see what this guy's all about. And that's when it really hit home that this game really loves the disappearing and reappearing blocks. It was a thing in Sonic Man, but they weren't over bottomless pits. And that's still not the case for Dynaman, but rather than dumping you into some water where an electric eel that you have to fight shows up and is easily escapable, here it's fire. It's just endless fire that you have to just charge across and hope you make it. And it is so rough. It was disheartening because I was just dying again and again and again. I don't even know how to explain it. It's just, I'm just walking through my playthrough and just what I was going through. But again, I eventually got it. I got its weird jumping physics where the longer you hold down, the farther you go, and that you can't just do a quick press in order to make your way. It just has a completely different feel to Mega Man 1 and 2 at this point. You stop on a dime, I'll give it that. But the way you move just feels so awkward that it's almost too tight, where you're stopping a lot sooner than you'd think. So you go to adjust for it and it just screws you up even more. It just took me a long time to really get a sense of what it was all about. That's when I got to Dynaman, realized Sonic Man's weapon is not effective against it, and lost. Now, granted, I could try again with my Mega Buster, get through that whole thing. I got it all set, but I'm like, okay, I'm going to take on Vaultman because I know he has the weakness, so let's see what he's all about. And it's just another thing where it's just so much attacking you at all times, being awkward to hit. Thankfully, Sonic Man's attack has a wider range than the basic Mega Buster, but again, that takes weapon energy. And more importantly, if you missed, which I would do it on occasion, realize that it's a bouncing weapon. So if you don't hit an enemy, it hits a wall and starts bouncing around the room. Not exactly useful, and funny enough, a concept that will be used later in, I believe, Mega Man 3. Although I should say that I don't know exactly when this game came out. I know it was the same year as Mega Man 3, but that didn't come out in Japan until late September, so I just went off the assumption that this had to come out before that point. However, I did not see the box art for this game at that point, which shows Rush. Rush does not appear in the game, but Rush is on the box, which indicates that this game actually came out after Mega Man 3, which might explain the influence of Sonic Man's weapon. The other two weapons are kind of crap. Vaultman himself puts up this barrier and is definitely a pain to get through. You have to sort of just wait him out until he sends out the barrier, jump over it, and then unload on him. What I eventually learned is that yes, the weaknesses are very much weaknesses, and it's not something that you need to just be conservative with, where you just hit on occasion like in any kind of rhythm. No, you jam that button and you will do so much damage so quickly that Vaultman died before I even realized it. So yay, 2 done, got back to Dynaman, and Vaultman's ability did wonders. It's like, okay, cool. Took down Dynaman, no issue, and figured out the level layouts. Then that's when I learned that Dynaman's weapon sucks. It is a grenade weapon that just is horribly inaccurate and horribly used and just not really a thing. So you get to the final level, and yes, it is the final level. There's only 4 levels in this game, and it's literally just a gauntlet, going through the 3 robot masters again, defeating them, and then getting to Wily, all in the set of 1 life. Now, it should be noted that there are E-tanks in this game. I never once got an E-tank in this game. I'd see them, but the jumps to reach them were so awkward that I couldn't do it. The one I actually could reach was not accessible without Dynaman's weapon. But Dynaman is weak to Voltman, so I'd have to actively choose Dynaman first, then go to Voltman in order to get this E-tank and have it to use. The design of this game seems so backwards and just so frustrating at all times. But the weird thing is, I acclimated to it. I beat the final stage in 1 go. It was close, but I figured out the weaknesses relatively quick and beat Wily on my first attempt. And that felt really good. It was like, oh, sweet, I got the feeling for this game. But it's figuring out what this game's putting down. The disappearing blocks, the fact that the disappearing blocks are so fast. It throws you for a loop, and I honestly did not enjoy my time with this game. But conversely, I did beat it. I didn't have access to save states or any of the like. I beat this game as it was meant to be played, and I feel like that has to be commendable in some way, because that's not always the case with these old, terrible, and hard games. Like, there's something out there that just makes them impossible to beat. But if you acclimate to the controls, and you do have infinite continues in this, you'll restart the level, but checkpoints are relatively generous, and if you can farm enemies for lives and health if you so desire, the game is actually quite beatable. It's a conundrum. You want to say that Mega Man DOS is just like the worst Mega Man game. Just how could it be this bad? But when you look at the history and the fact that basically one man developed this and what he accomplished, what he pulled from it which is for a system that, from my eyes, is not made for these types of games, it's not too bad. It's not good in any sense of the word. This is a bad game, but it's not the worst ever, which is what surprised me the most. Now, granted, there is a second Mega Man DOS game that comes out down the line, weirdly titled Mega Man 3, but this one is oddly playable. You'll get frustrated, you'll likely want to give up and not really continue it, but as somebody trying to beat all these games, it's on the lower end of okay. And if you want to try it out, it's perfectly playable. You just go to myabandonware.com, search for Mega Man DOS, you will find it, and you can give it a shot. But as should be evident by the footage, it is not a pretty game, it is not a well-playing game, it is not a well-balanced game. But it's also not the worst ever, which is, again, damning it with faint praise, but I feel like that is something to be said for this game. I had a not great time playing through it, but there was something satisfying about overcoming these odds. It's an odd thing, but yeah, that's Mega Man DOS. Definitely the worst so far, but I honestly encourage you to try it out yourself. Give it a try. I think it's an oddity worth playing for at least a few moments. But what about all of you? I am absolutely curious if any of you have actually played Mega Man DOS before this point. Am I crazy in thinking that this isn't the absolute worst, or am I way off the base on that? Let me know in the comments, and thank you once again for joining me in this journey to play every single Mega Man game. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing to Good Vibes Gaming, hitting the like button, and ringing that bell. We also have our Patreon at patreon.com/gvgaming with plenty of extra perks. Until next time, bye!